Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Glad to have back District 19 Republican, the great state of Florida. It's Byron Donalds. Representative, how are you? Good to see you again.
I'm doing good. It's good to be back with you.
I've got to throw this out there. First and foremost, you and I are about the same size guy. I'm 6'1", 250. I think you said you're 6'2", 270, 275, something like that?
Yeah, that means I'm much bigger than you.
We could both probably play, offensive line, but it brought to mind some reporter, some jerky reporter said something about, are you afraid of this, that, or the other legislation? Are you afraid of what might happen in some, I don't know what the hell was going on? And you just looked right at him and just laughed and said, 6'2", 275, I don't think so.
I mean, what's to be afraid of? I mean, it's the first thing that came to my mind, but, I grew up in inner city Brooklyn. So if you're talking about being afraid of what another member is going to think of me up here or of what, political retribution, like that stuff doesn't concern me. What concerns me is making sure that we get the job done for the American people, first, second, and third. Everything else has to wait. And so, I'm not really concerned about that kind of stuff. Now, at the same time, people need to understand, I'm not rude. I treat everybody with respect. And I'm business-like. I go about my business. And so when you're trying to get the right thing done, if there are people who don't like it, then that's fine. But we're here to do a job, and that's to get the country back on track. That's what matters. Everything else has to wait for another day.
It's Representative Byron Donalds, the great state of Florida. I love when you were on. It was Joy Reid, right, who would not shut up and just kept on saying no. She was like a child. I love that you have the gumption to go on a show like that when you know you're just going to be talked over and you're going to be attacked. And you were very calm in saying, listen, I'm from the economic world. I don't know what you're talking about, but I know what's going on in Congress. I know what the House is doing. I know what the economy looks like right now. What goes through your head? Because Joy Reid would never come on my show. It would be very bad for her. What goes through your head when you know you're going to be shouted down the entire time and you know that what you're getting is nothing but foolishness? Nothing she said was true.
It's really about just getting the message out to all people, to all Americans. There are people that watch her show that probably won't watch an interview with you or on Fox or anything else like that.
Right.
So you have to go talk to all Americans. You can't just talk to half the country and think you're going to get the job done. Quick point for Joy. I was with the CBO director today. Yeah, Social Security is going insolvent in 2032. That's from the CBO, not me.
Right.
But look, you have to be able to take the message everywhere in politics today. All Americans need to understand what the issues of the country really are and what the solutions really are. Because once we figure out what that argument is, if you can win that argument amongst the public, it gives us the ability to get the policy done here on Capitol Hill.
It is Byron Donalds. He's the U.S. Representative, District 19, Republican, great state of Florida. Your state has been very in the forefront, as mine has as well. I'm in Texas, although I grew up in Florida. Has been in the forefront of trying to stop all this illegal immigration that's happening. The illegal alien numbers are almost 7 million in 2.5 years. Doesn't make any sense. What Trump was doing worked. What Biden's doing is not working. They keep on pretending that it's working, but it's not. There's one case where that actually kind of proves, I think, what you and I feel about this, that Democrats really want these people to be votes for them. In D.C., they're trying to allow people who are here illegally to vote. Byron, growing up, and I'm sure you got the same lessons, I was taught that a U.S. citizen has the right to vote, and not only do they have the right, they have the duty to vote. At what point do we start letting anybody and everybody start voting in our elections? When you're here illegally, you're still having allegiance to another country. Why would we allow that?
We should not. And actually, as it stands today, non-citizens, illegal immigrants, foreign nationals can vote in municipal elections in Washington, D.C. It's a joke. It doesn't make any sense. It's outrageous. We've never allowed this at any point in American history. You said it best. You cannot have an allegiance to another country. Your allegiance has to be to the United States, and that's what gives you the ability to vote in our elections. So this is a problem, and this is something that the Democrats want to see. They tried this in New York. The state Supreme Court shut it down. The state Supreme Court of New York, not the United States Supreme Court. Right. They shut it down. This is something that the left has been trying and pushing. What happened here in Washington is that Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer didn't want to do a thing to protect the sovereignty of the United States citizens who live in the District of Columbia. By the way, the vast majority of which are black citizens.
Yes.
in Washington, D.C. We passed a measure in the House of Representatives to override the D.C. City Council. The Senate, led by Chuck Schumer, and the White House have not said a word. They have been mum. They took no action. And this is a dangerous precedent. I'll end by saying this. No other country in the world would allow an American citizen to vote in their elections. Not one. We shouldn't be doing it here.
I couldn't agree more. And no other country, by the way, would let an
in Washington, D.C. We passed a measure in the House of Representatives to override the D.C. City Council. The Senate, led by Chuck Schumer, and the White House have not said a word. They have been mum. They took no action. And this is a dangerous precedent. I'll end by saying this. No other country in the world would allow an American citizen to vote in their elections. Not one. We shouldn't be doing it here.
I couldn't agree more. And no other country, by the way, would let an American citizen who broke through the border illegally to even go to work or buy property or do anything. You'd be in the federal prison in Mexico if you tried to do that. It's Byron Donalds. So let me ask you this. Do you agree with me that Biden and Mayorkas and Schumer and down the line just don't care about the human trafficking that's being done? The inhumane treatment of those coming from countries far and wide who are being lied to by the cartels is something the Democrats, who are supposed to be compassionate, don't seem to care about. And the fentanyl coming across the border. They just don't care. It's just so they can get votes? Really?
No, they don't care. This is the agenda. And so they're going to do this for the radical immigration people in their party who just want open borders. They're not going to reverse course. The data has been clear on the southern border. The cartels have operational control of our southern border. I explain it to people this way. The drug cartels are running a spread offense. And all they're doing is they're engaging every border agent on our southern border with migrants coming across. And when our border agents are engaged, the drug cartel is running people, traffickers, with packs of fentanyl on their backs through the gaps. This is what's happening on the southern border. Joe Biden knows this. Chuck Schumer knows this. Mayorkas knows this. But they don't turn a blind eye. They don't lift a finger. They don't reverse course because they want massive illegal immigration in the United States. That is what they want. So it doesn't matter if fentanyl is killing more people in our country. This is what they want. They're not going to stop. Donalds.house.gov is the website. It's District 19 Republican, great state of Florida, Byron Donalds. Really appreciate the time. You could, I think, very easily impeach Mayorkas. But what does that get you? You're not going to get 67 votes in the Senate, so he's not going to be removed from the job. Would a move like that be just, hey, we did it because we wanted to show you how unhappy we are with him? Maybe force him to resign? Well, are you considering impeaching him, and to what end? Well, look, I'll say right now, the first part is going to be the investigations into his conduct, and not just his conduct alone, the conduct of going on in the other cabinets as well, any other cabinet secretaries. We're going to do investigations first. Let the investigations lead us. The one thing I want people to understand is that the Democrats last Congress, they picked a target. They personalized it. They polarized it. It didn't matter what the facts said. They wanted to get their man, that being Donald Trump. We're not going to operate like the Democrats. There still is a rule of law, no matter how distasteful I think Mayorkas has been in his job and how much he's been in violation of his oath in his job. We're going to investigate it first. If it takes us to impeachment, then that's the next step that we take. But I don't want to front run the investigation because we have to have a process here in Washington where investigations happen and we hold the administration accountable before we take the ultimate step, which is impeachment. Is it your belief, like it is mine, that states can do something because the federal government is doing nothing about the border? In other words, do you think that Texas and Arizona and New Mexico, not that California would want to, but that these states that are border states can literally arrest people, walk them back to the border and send them south, and then let the federal government sue them if they have to? Well, look, I mean, let's be very clear. Immigration is the sole jurisdiction of the federal government. Right. Now, I completely disagree with how Joe Biden is going about this. It is a violation of federal law, but he is the executive branch, as sorry as that is for everybody in the United States. So it's going to create a constitutional crisis if the states go ahead and take that action. But governors have a responsibility to protect their citizens as well and protect their states. And so we're going to see where that goes. If that's what they choose to do, this is obviously going to end up in court, and we'll see what the court says. One of the reasons we got to this point is because back in 2014, at the time, Arizona said that they simply wanted to check immigration status through when people got pulled over, when they engaged law enforcement. That went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court at that point gave unilateral or plenary power to the president with respect to immigration.
Yeah.
I disagreed with that court case, but that's what the court did at the time. We have to be very careful about how we're going to run these cases through. At the end of the day, the president needs to do his job. Secure the border.
And he's just not. Donalds.house.gov. I know you've got to go and vote again. Just very quickly, I had Andy Biggs on yesterday. He said the real number of equipment and money that we've already sent to Ukraine is closer to $200 billion than it is whatever the number is the media has been putting out there, the left's been putting out there. When does it stop, Representative? At what point do we say to Zelensky, who, by the way, just the other day said, Americans better get on board or else you're going to lose NATO and you're going to lose your standing in the world. He basically threatened the American people to support him more. At what point do we stop? Do you even know what it's being spent on?
One, we don't know what's being spent on. That's why I haven't voted for any supplemental for Ukraine except for the first one,
right?
Because there's no audit function. We don't know where the money's going. I agree with my colleague from Arizona. It's probably closer to $2 billion when you factor in all the equipment that's gone over. But look, this is a very tough and bad situation. Again, if Joe Biden had did his job after the fall of Afghanistan and make sure that we were supportive of Ukraine and their sovereignty when Vladimir Putin was amassing troops on the border, we wouldn't be in this situation now. And so now the American people are having to spend money because Joe Biden was feckless in his duties as commander-in-chief. That being said, how far do we go? We can't be in a situation where Russia takes over Ukraine. That definitely puts NATO in peril.
Right.
Vladimir Putin has said he wants Poland. I take him at his word on this stuff. And it puts us in a bad foreign policy position with respect to Taiwan because China will then be looking at Taiwan in a much more aggressive stance. There are no good answers here, frankly, but this is what happens when you have bad leadership at the top that is feckless and is weak and doesn't do what's necessary from a foreign policy perspective.
District 19 Republican, great state of Florida, Byron Donalds. Representative, thanks a million for coming on. Appreciate you.
Anytime. Thank you.
We're back after this. Stay right here.